Morning, everybody. This is Mike from the Last Corvette. So this is the first part of winterizing Mariah, and later on we'll winterize two sea-doo jet skis. And with those, it's very, very simple. It's just fingers crossed the batteries are good. The batteries are brand new, but I'm hoping that they start. Otherwise, we'll have to charge the batteries, and that's going to take some time. It sucks, but whatever. All right, so I just went and got 2 gallons of Red Pop, marine / RV antifreeze. I'm going to show you here in a second what they look like. I used to buy them in bulk. Like, I used to buy boxes of this stuff, right? Because I had a bunch of boats to do. Here it is right here, Splash, -50. Now, you can leave this in your water system because up to -50 that is, Fahrenheit, this will basically not become solid. It's not going to freeze. What it does as the temperature drops, it actually gels up and turns into, I don't know, like a slushy, almost like a Slurpee type, we'll say, substance. But I never leave Red Pop in the engines or in the water systems, just because you do run a risk, especially on like PEX or PVC or fittings, of cracking it, just because, you know, they don't like to expand. So what I normally do is I will drain all the water out. Sometimes I will use an air compressor to push all the water out, and then I'll run that through whatever system it is and purge that out, and you're done. The only reason I bought 2 gallons, and I'll have to buy 4 gallons later on for a different boat that I'll do a separate video on, and that one actually has a water system. So it has a small little, like a wet bar, and then it has a transom shower. So that has to get purged out. In this case, this Mariah doesn't have a water system, period. The only water system it has is to cool the motor. And this is a open, raw water-cooled boat, meaning that it takes seawater, lake water, whatever body of water you're in, sucks it up through the drive, and in this case it's Alpha 1, so the pump lives in the lower leg, sends it to the main circulating pump, same water pump you would find on any engine, and from there the water flows where it needs to. Block, heads, exhaust manifold, intake, stuff like that, right? Cools everything, including the exhaust risers on boats, manifolds, and your boots leading down to your white pipe. So boats work a little different, and yes, some boats are half systems, meaning that the block will be basically filled with antifreeze with a little heat exchanger or a big exchanger, depending on the size of the boat, size of the motor, but not in this boat, so we're not even going to touch that. I just kind of wanted to bring that up and explain that portion of it. When it comes to winterizing, that's coming up. I'm going to uncork the boat, get everything set up and ready, and actually show you guys how to do it properly without worrying about possible damage to the engine. All right, so here we go. This is a 350 Magnum Alpha 1 setup. I'm gonna go through just a basic visual inspection. I'm gonna look at the gear lube. I'm going to look at the power steering. I'm going to check the oil. Over here is a oil filter, which we're not doing. That's come spring. Over there is a water separator, fuel water separator, which we change every year. Same thing in the spring. Motor looks pretty nice. That alternator there is obviously new. I replaced that a couple of years back. So I'm just going to go through a normal, like, check, and then we're going to go through the actual process of draining the water out and winterizing this boat. Now, if you guys don't know what this is actually a tank with a low limit switch for your gear lube. On the older models, we didn't have this option. It was just the gear lube was contained within the drive. So this is a visual to see if you have a leak in your gear lube system, and then if this tank gets low, you're going to get a alarm, usually a buzzer or a beep, single beep, and it's very important to keep an eye on this. Now you see that there's a little gap from fill to basically it's like three quarters of the way full. This is normal because when I change gear lube, the gear lube, you'll have an air pocket and it will burp. And I usually give customers the remaining gear lube, and I'm like, hey, when it burps, It's up to you, but just, you know, basically fill it back up to the full line or the fill line. He didn't do it, which is fine, but he does maintain the boat in, I'll say, in really good condition. And what he does is, before he starts the boat, every time he goes out, he checks the level of the gear loop. He also checks the oil and just the overall condition, making sure there's no water in the bilge and stuff like that. That's your proper steps. That's what you want to do. All right, let me check the oil and everything else, and then we'll start draining this engine. All right, so just check the fluids. Everything is good. No worries there. So the first thing I always start with are the exhaust manifolds. And this right here would be the port side of the boat, that's starboard side. So if you come over here, this here is your exhaust manifold. Right there is a plastic drain. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop it loose. And we're going to start draining the port side exhaust manifold. Now, and this is how they look. This one actually does need a O-ring, so you can do that come springtime. I do have this trusty, where is it at? Maybe I'm sitting on it. Let's see oh, there it is. So this little small screwdriver pick, I always, especially on the engine blocks, and I'll show you that in a second. I will take this like that and go right into the drain port itself to make sure that you don't have any buildup. A lot of times you'll have, especially like if you're in, we'll say brick water or whatever, or you run in shallows a lot, you'll have sand buildup in the actual drain. And you don't want that, because you might open it, a little water will come out, and you're like, okay, yeah, we're good. And next thing you know, you have a cracked exhaust manifold or a block because you technically didn't drain all of the water out. All right, so let's move on to the block on the port side. All right, so we just did the exhaust manifold, which is right here. And now we're doing the port side block. So we're going to drain the port side portion of this engine. Okay, very, very important to do. And remember that your V6s, V8s, you do have two sides. It's a V. All right, so let's try to do this. So there you go. So let it go, and then it's going to drain all the water out from the port side. And then once again, I'm going to take my little nifty screwdriver. This is a pretty good flow. A lot of times, if you undo the drain, you don't see anything coming out or a trickle. You want to do this. As you can see, I'm taking a screwdriver in there, and I'm just making sure there's nothing blocking it. And then, you know, it's going to drain for a while, and you just let it do its thing. All right, let's move on to the port side, or starboard side, sorry. All right, so on the starboard side of this engine, let me show you something. You have a similar drain plug for, once again, your starboard side exhaust manifold. But on the block side, if you look over here, yep, there you go. So you see there's a little connector there. And that right there, you're staring at the drain plug, but there's a 90-degree elbow. It's also a temp sensor, engine water temperature sensor. And what I usually do in this case is I will unscrew the entire sensor, and that will essentially do the same thing and drain out the starboard side of your block. Watch this. Let me get and people always ask, you know, what is it? Why do people charge so much money for doing this? Well, there you go. It's not easy to get to. So this is how it looks. So this is actually technically the drain. But you got, as you can see, a lot of corrosion on the sensor. So I normally just remove the whole thing right out of the block. And it works really well. And I also leave everything out too for customers. So once again, we're going to do a couple of things here. So you guys can see I'm going to take my little screwdriver. I'm going to reach in here and where's the hole? There it is right here. So we're going to go in. Make sure there's a little bit of crud I feel on this side, but it's pretty good. And the same thing with exhaust. You're good to go. And then you drop the screwdriver. And all right, so now we got basically the main portion of this winterize process completed. We got both sides of the block. We got both of the exhaust manifolds, but we do have some other stuff to take care of. So let me show you. All right, so what I'm doing right now is I bought this red pop, and under normal conditions, I wouldn't even use antifreeze or red pop to flush anything out. Just, it's not a necessity in this situation. But to show you guys a proper way to winterize a boat, I'm going to show you. Let me adjust my light here. I'm going to put it like that. That should be okay. I'm going to show you that I'm going to flush out the port side exhaust manifold, and then I'll bring up the camera basically and show you guys what I did. So there it goes. So you can see that red pop flowing right in the corner of the screen. We can do a little bit more, just like that. Okay, so that basically tells us that there is nothing left but air, and that's how we're going to leave it. Let me bring you back up. This is what I'm doing here. So this is your thermostat housing. This is the hose running to your exhaust manifold right there, and I just took it off, removed it, and literally poured antifreeze that into here. Now I'm going to reconnect it and do the starboard side. And then we're also going to do, believe it or not, the block, the engine, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so at this point, we have literally all of the water gone and drained out of your main components that could be very costly and obviously very, we'll say, untimely when it comes to spring startup. And you'd be like, oh my God, why do I have water mixing in with oil? Or why do I have a leak? You know, why is there a crack? You don't want to do that. So we drained the exhaust manifolds. We drained both sides of the block. The only two other things we have left to do is to drain out our circulating water pump, which is right here, just like any other engine, car engine. And then we have a cooler that's on this side here we're going to drain as well. So I'm going to remove this hose actually from here, and I'm going to flip it over and drain out whatever is basically in this water pump cavity. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this hose to flush out the block, and you're actually going to be flushing out both sides of your block, because that's your main circulating pump. So I'll show you that in a second. All right, so I got the hose removed, and let's see how much water we have in the actual main circulating water cavity here. Usually not a lot. Let's see, this clamp here is actually starting to disintegrate, so there you go. A little bit of water usually comes out, not a big deal. All right, so now what we're going to do, and I'm going to set you guys up again right here. Somewhere by the drain there. Hopefully you guys will see the coming out. So I'm going to take the red pop, and I'm going to backfill There you go. You guys see that trickle there? So we're going to do a bit more. Like that. So that is red pop flowing through your block now. Do one more. Okay, so long story short, the reason a little bit of water pushed out is because I still had water in the hose. Normally, if I was to do it without antifreeze, I would actually disconnect the bottom and then just purge everything out of the water pump cavity. But in this case, I flushed the pink antifreeze, wherever the stuff is, right there, right through the top of this hose. And now we're almost complete, believe it or not. We just have to take care of the cooler, which is on this side here, drain that out, and we are done. All right, so this here, this is a port side again. This here, right there, is a power steering cooler. So power steering fluid basically goes in and out, and it gets cooled by the incoming raw water. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen up this clamp here, take this hose off, and then drain it out. And that's all we got to do. And I already put some red pop in there, so we're going to see some antifreeze come out. And this is this hose right here. So I already took it off, filled it with antifreeze. And but we still have the in-feed side and then the out-feed side. So let me do that first. All right, so here it is disconnected. As you can see, red pop is coming from this side. That's the side that I filled. And then this here is actually your main hose that feeds raw water to your engine. So now all we got to do is just try to tilt this hose maybe to get some more out. Here's a little bit of red pop coming out. You can also squeeze it, but it's pretty empty now. All right, we're going to reattach the hose, and believe it or not, that's it. All right, so we're done with this Mirai. It's winterized. Very simple, just a single engine, no water system, no nothing on it. Now, the comments that I started to see are true. So 97, 98, Mercruiser and Volvo, you're basically two big players in power boats, did add a drain plug on the cooler where you could actually drain out the water inside the cooler versus removing the hose. They also upgraded your block drains to the same blue style wing nuts, plastic wing nuts, versus having the brass fittings that or plugs, basically drain plugs, that you would need a socket and a ratchet to remove, like in this one. Now, this is an Alpha 1 Gen 2, so the raw water pump is inside the lower leg. On your Bravos, on your dual prop Volvos, the raw water pump is actually inside the engine compartment. It's actually a accessory driven raw water pump. It makes it a lot easier. If it does go bad, you can replace it while the boat is in the water. And in the beginning, they had the same issue where you had two hoses and people would disconnect them, flip-flop them, basically create no water flow if they weren't marked. But later on, same thing, they added a drain to the accessory driven raw water pump. Obviously, this boat doesn't have it. I'm not going to get into the whole half closed system, full closed system. This is just a open raw water system here that we did today. Now, another added bonus later on was a vacuum pump that they installed, meaning that you would open up all of your drain points and then you would use compressed air manually pumping it to push the water out. But once again, you still wanted to make sure that all of your drain ports were, free. So you got to stick something in there to make sure everything is unclogged, because, like I said, so many times you would think you're draining your exhaust manifolds or your engine block, and in reality you still have a shit ton of water there and nothing comes out just because you have sand or whatever else build up inside that little fitting. Now, as far as this boat goes, I put a list together. I sent it out to the customer. Ignition cylinder is going to be replaced. Port side, Lenco, electric trim tab pump, receiving power. It's not moving. We're also going to do the rams on the drive. They're scored. They're very, very sticky half the time. He either has to use the pressure of the water to lower it, or actually you got to literally like push on or step on it, and you can see the scoring right there. Now, as far as the Lenco trim tabs go, they're very easy to identify. Now, most of these diameters are the same. The length in between the pins or the bolts is different. So from here to here is 11.5 inches, and this is a standard 101 Lenco actuator, basically, since it's not hydraulically driven. So right around 280 brand new, but you can get them on eBay, even new ones, for half the price if you really search for. So it's going to have to be replaced. The rams are going to have to be replaced come springtime. The trim gauge itself is kind of funky, so we're going to look at that. Ignition cylinder, like I said, the windshield wiper motor is fine. It was just had a loose ground, so I fixed that. And then, of course, we're going to replace his depth gauge and put a new sonar on the hull side. So it's going to be a through hull fitting. All right, that pretty much covers it. If you guys have any questions, you can definitely just shoot me a message. But, you know, overall, it does need some extra work, but, you know, it comes with boats in general, and also comes with, you know, being that this boat is 95. All right, so here are the two jet skis that I'm winterizing, and yes, the batteries are freaking dead. I'm hoping to charge one battery and then just basically use the one battery for both of these jet skis. But here's my 5-gallon tank. I'm putting red pop in. I'm going to use all 5 gallons for this application here anyway, or close to it. So this is a very, very simple setup. You basically got a 5-gallon jug with a vent, which I'll put right here so I don't lose it. And then you got red pop, which you guys saw in the previous video. And you're just filling it up. And then here's the adapter that goes into the fill neck, basically with two ball valves. And what you do is you have a simple garden hose that's already connected to this jet ski, to the flush port right there. And long story short, what you do is you start the jet ski first, and then what you do is you open up the valves, remove the vent, and you gravity feed red pop into the jet ski. And what's going to happen, it's going to push all of your remaining water out of the engine and out of the exhaust system, and winterize your jet ski. So basically, when we get it running, I'll make a video, but same thing, you'll see clear water coming out through the exhaust here, and then eventually it's going to start shooting out pink red pop. And once you see a good flow of pink antifreeze, you're winterized. These are 2 strokes. The fuel is already treated, so it's not like they're newer supercharged jet skis or anything like that. They're old school. So you're using the same flush port as you would for flushing out the jet ski. If, let's say, you ran in sand, or if you had like brick water or salt water, after every use, you would flush these bad boys out. But it works the same way. So older jet skis didn't have a flush port. They actually, you would have to disconnect the actual intake water hoses going into the engine, and install a flush port that way. But anyway, once I get this battery charged, I'll show you guys how it all works. As you can see, here's that fitting. So the other end of the hose is going to go on that fitting. Jet ski starts, you open the valves, and you gravity feed antifreeze into the ski. All right, so I got you guys set up. This battery on the first jet ski is, I believe, ready to go. I just had it started. So make sure, as I made videos earlier this year, you always start these jet skis first, regardless of the year, make, and model. And then you turn your water on to flush them, or feed in antifreeze. The engine has to be running. And then when you're done doing what you're doing, what you're going to do is you're going to shut off your water supply or your antifreeze flow from the jug first, and then bleep the jet ski throttle a couple of times, and then shut the jet ski off. All right, so let's give this a try. All right, well, hopefully you guys saw that. But anyway, long story short, that one is winterized. All right, let's move on to this one.